Here's a 1995 Kentucky story, okay? So 1995, I'd be 13 years of age. Gallatin County at the old middle school that's no longer there. So this is a piece of history. Maggie Webster was one of the greatest people that I ever met. Maggie Webster was one of the greatest people that I ever met, and I failed her. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I only knew her for the 1 year in 8th grade. In 8th grade, when Mr. Miller and Mrs. Erickson, Mr. Heim, and Mrs. Marsh was my teacher. Now, there's only one little page here. I don't know. There's the escape. So, apparently Frederick Douglass and a couple of the other guys on the plantation, they tried to escape, but they weren't able to do so. They tried to run away, and as they were running away, they were captured. There's a canoe here. I don't know if it's all plotting or just in their imagination, but it looks like they're running in a canoe and they're sailing, and then eventually the slave catchers on horseback corner them. And there's 3 men on horseback, and they have maybe 2 men cornered. So it's just Frederick Douglass. 3 sheriffs rode up on the Freelands property with great urgency. The escape plan had been exposed. Say nothing, admit nothing. Fred, come here. These men want to speak to you. Come here. Boy, I ain't done anything. We should search them for the papers Fred forged. That'll be the evidence we need. We could search them later. Need to take them all into custody first. With my hands bound in front of me, I felt helpless. So this is... They're about to, goddamn throw Frederick Douglass is about to never be anything. Just an old poor peasant slave thrown back onto the plantation, never to make anything of himself. So they were planning, they were plotting. The 3 sheriffs comes up on horseback, and they want to arrest them all. Now, there's one black man who's back talking, and he's like, you can go ahead and shoot me, but you can't kill me but once, but you ain't gonna tie my hands. That's what Henry Harris isn't gonna let these damn sheriffs fucking tie his hands. Make me helpless, tie my hands? I don't think so. And you got the sheriff saying, I warned you, boy. And then he throws a punch, and then they beat him up. The sheriffs on the horseback are sitting there punching him, hitting him with a stick. Henry Harris put me to shame that day, for his defiance was measured against my cowardice, his action to my inaction. Ben Palmer was my Henry Harris. Benjamin Palmer. Intentional or not, Henry's distraction provided the opportunity that we all needed. On my person were the papers I had forged. I had to make sure that the papers were destroyed. And so Henry Harris was able to make a distraction so that Frederick Douglass could destroy the papers, and nothing ever came to them, plotting to run away. They thought that they were their own men and they were going to run away, but the sheriffs were like, hey, how dare you? You're not your own man, you're our men. They didn't want to work. They're a bunch of lazy sons of bitches. The South, it looks like it's all idyllic. There's nice big plantations, sprawling plantations, just slow and genteel and just nice, proper, mannerly, right? Just upright and dignified, and yet they're standing on the backs of black folks. The entire America up until the Civil War, a lot of the South, but it was the North too. It was a white totalitarian dictatorship. It was a Faustian bargain. It was a deal with the devil. Every white person was okay with essentially all black people being enslaved, because I guess somehow everybody got a piece of the pie. You got to at least were made to feel better than the black man. But 50% of the white folks at least owned one person. And so it was a deal with the devil, right? If you had one person that would come in and do all your labor while you just sat on the couch eating your bonbons and watching a bunch of soap operas like a illiterate, crappy, what am I saying? A sacrifice at sea. To this day, I do not know if the defiant actions of Henry Harris were by design. If he offered his body as a sacrifice so that we might appear innocent of the crimes we faced. All I know is that a man more heroic than Henry Harris has never drawn breath. Here's some of the pictures of that. Right, so you got him running up there and then beating up on Henry Harris. Then he was able to throw the papers into the fire. So we would have never had a Frederick Douglass if we didn't have Henry Harris that stood up. And you know what? I can't tell. Did he do it as a distraction on purpose? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe he just didn't like the idea of his hands being bound. Once his hands are bound, he can't fight for himself. What's he going to do? And you just want me to, you want to bound my hands? Maybe he saw some horrible shit. Maybe he saw somebody get their hands bound and then the guy couldn't defend himself. And he had to try to fight him, and defend himself with his hands bound behind his back. Henry Harris. We should remember Frederick Douglass, Henry Harris, Abraham Lincoln. So let's get back to Gallatin County, Kentucky. A lot of stuff with the Civil Wars, brother versus brother. You had Beloved. You had Beloved in northern Kentucky. Maysville is going to be the inspiration for Uncle Tom's Cabin. So Maggie Webster. Maggie Webster is one of the greatest people that I ever met. In the 8th grade, she was a volunteer. She was a parent for some of the other players. And actually, they were on another team. But she grilled us. She was so awesome. I guess we were all in the same middle school. So she was a volunteer. She was a parent. And since her daughters were on the team, she wanted our team to do well. And so she just grilled us with questions. I was good at math. Brandon was good at Greek mythology. And Ben was good at, Megan was good at, Colin was good at some things. So we had a pretty good, strong team in the 8th grade. But while we all were intelligent on our own accord, it was because of Maggie Webster. Maggie Webster absolutely grilled us day in and day out. She wanted us to succeed. She wanted us to actually to know the facts. And actually, I guess I have to look this up. But she actually educated us. She articulated our minds. If you have a brilliant person, let's say you have a brilliant son or daughter, well, you need to articulate their minds. You need to get that good, energy. You're good at math, well, then get them into math, problems, math. There's like competitions and whatnot, but there's engineering, right? There's good software programs and a whole bunch of stuff. Harness that creativity, harness that talent, and, point it in a specific direction. Who invented the steam? I think it's Robert Fulton, right? Who invented the steamship, the steamboat? The steamship. The steamboat. We're going with the steamboat. Robert Fulton in 1807. There you go. Thank you, Maggie Webster. So that's something that was lodged in my brain, but it was academic team. So we were just like doing math fucking test for fun. We were doing social studies test for fun. English and all the... So Maggie Webster. This is back in the 8th grade, Gallatin County, northern Kentucky, in the middle school. I wonder if that old middle school, if we got like a picture of that old middle school, because they tore that middle school down. So this is 1995, right in the heart of the 1990s. Reds went wire to wire in 1990. But this is after the 70s and all the fucking Pete Rose and Johnny Bench. So it was the Chris Sabo. Who else was on the Reds at the time? Let's see, middle school, Gallatin County. There's actually 3 Gallatin counties in America named after, of course, Jehoshaphat Gallatin. So let's see, Gallatin County Upper Elementary, Middle School. That's the new middle school. Do they have the old? Yeah, here you go. And it says, oh, okay. Well, this high school in Montana looked like the old middle school. I got excited there for a second. My guess is they don't have a picture of it. Let's see if I write the old middle school. And should I put Kentucky? That'll help clarify things. The old middle school. There we go. Gallatin County Echoes. Yearbooks. Maybe. Gallatin County High School. The old high school. It would have been the old high school, wouldn't it? Here's where it's being tore down. Gallatin County Middle School, and it looks like it's being tore down, so it looks like it's one of the last pictures. It's an old blurry picture. Somebody sitting on the front of it, but it's that building right there. Because it had a nice entrance. It had a nice, like, 4-door entrance. And it's pretty spacious, too. Wasn't there a gym? I can't... man. They tore it down and then made room for... new high school at Gallatin County. It has to be this one, right? Because it kind of looks like... well, it looks like the design is just a drawing. So it's, you see the yellow bricks of it. There was no air conditioner. Whatever. Get back to the story, huh? Come on, John. Well, here, let me just... it kind of looked like this old one here. Gallatin County High School, Bozeman, Montana. It's not this one, but it's just kind of like the old style, old bricks, old, just flat-faced, not a great facade. But not too bad. I mean, you could have still used it. It just didn't have air conditioner, and maybe somebody got some grants or something, and they just had to use the land that they got. Maybe there was asbestos or something. We were fucking breathing in asbestos. I don't know. But you saw the one picture, so you know that it existed. You know that it existed. Oh, wait a second. This is important. Yeah, because not only did you have that main building, you also had the elementary. The upper elementary was on the left-hand side. So, okay, this is the old building. It's all gone. But see right here, and this is actually where I met Kelly Warnick. Kelly Warnick was a Gallatin County newspaper guy. But this is the upper elementary, and then the middle school is over there. And then you got this little, annex. And then you had that stinky-ass cafeteria that was in the basement of the old, I guess that used to be the high school turned into the middle school. But that's a picture of the old school that no longer is there. So it's a relic. It's a relic. I'm a part of history. I'm a part of history. 1995, and that is goddamn motherfucking 28 years ago. 28 years ago. 28 years ago. Maggie Webster. So it's kind of a ode to Maggie Webster. Maggie Webster may still be alive. I don't know. I just know that she had, she inspired me. She inspired me for 1 year. I only knew her for 1 year. And then later on, I'm going to hear that she got into a motorcycle crash out in Utah or Oregon or some, place out west. I'm in Kentucky. So, okay. Gallatin County, 8th grade, Northern Kentucky. My 8th grade teachers, you got Miss Erickson, English teacher. You got Mrs. Marsh, math teacher. Mr. Miller, social studies. And Mr. Heim, my science teacher. And it's actually a rock star fucking cast. These are some badass. Miss Erickson, great English teacher. Mr. Heim. Mr. Heim is hands down probably the best fucking teacher ever. He was young, and so he actually wanted to inspire the class. He was also, nice, strong, booming voice, nice and tall. So, Mr. Heim, Mrs. Erickson, Mr. Miller, Mrs. Marsh. This is 8th grade, 1995. The 4 classes that we had, math, English, science, and social studies, not civics. And then that's it. Those are just the 4 core classes, math, English, science, and social studies. And then that's it. In the very beginning, I was in Gallatin County for the first couple grades. I had Miss Kennedy in the kindergarten, and I had Mrs. Nash, first grade, and then Mrs. Perkins. Mrs. Perkins was either my teacher in the 2nd or 3rd grade. And then I had a... goodness gracious, Miss Flowers. And then I had, also had a gifted and talented teacher too. So for the first 4 years I was at Gallatin. Then I went to Grant County for 3 or 4 years. And I went to Florida for 1 year. Then I come back in 8th grade. So basically nobody knew me. I only knew Kyle F. And I only knew him because, he was my friend in the 1st grade. But he acted like he didn't even really know me. And in a way we didn't know each other. So the middle school building, that greasy-ass kitchen in the basement. Sometimes I salivate whenever I smell. It was just basically just a bunch of fried food. So just the grease was stained on the walls. So every time you would walk into the damn basement, you would just smell that. But it's greasy kitchen, right? A nice greasy spoon, greasy kitchen. They got to fry all those goddamn chicken nuggets for all those students. There wasn't any air conditioning, but it was okay. It was all okay. It wasn't that bad. So... kind of makes me wonder, why didn't we build new buildings in another place? Why did we have to destroy this relic. But when I first go to the 8th grade, I was actually put in the slow class. I was there with Paul Lay and Wyatt Eggleston. I was in the slow class since they didn't know who I was. So they just put me in, just put him in over there. So they bulldozed it over for a newer, better building. It no longer exists except for in pictures and memories. That's all we got. So, okay, 13 years old, Maggie Webster. Like I said, she has 2 daughters. They're part of the academic team, and one was older than the other one, but they're both younger than me, so I didn't really pay them much attention. But they're a part of the academic team, so she was there asking us questions, the 8th graders and the 7th graders and the 6th graders. I don't know, the 7th graders, maybe the 6th graders too. So, you just kind of go along when you're a student. You don't ask too many questions. But she was there. Maggie Webster was there. She was a volunteer. She was a parent. She loved her daughters. And so she wanted the academic team to do well. So unlike all the other teachers, unlike my government, she actually delivered. Unlike, family members. My grandmother got me to the head of the class. She got me this game. But in terms of articulating my mind, reading a book or just, learning new facts and information and being excited about educating, I didn't have that growing up. But Maggie Webster just grilled us, and that's basically all she's going to do. But we were really good. She educated us. And then nobody's going to stand up for her. She actually educated us. She did something that 95% of the teachers out of the 17 years of American schooling that I've wasted way too much time on, she did something they never did. She actually taught us something. We were good, we were sharp, and we were a good, strong, winning team. And she was just a volunteer. She wasn't even a teacher. She wasn't even being paid. Everything she did was for free because she was a kind and loving parent who cared about her daughters. That's big because, like I said, I failed her. And I failed her because at the end of the 8th grade year, she had asked all of us to write a letter for her because the guy that was in charge of the team but never did anything around, some guy named Mr. Man. Well, just like a fucking man, right? He takes all the fucking credit, but he didn't do shit. I don't even know. I guess he showed up for the fucking academic matches and just kind of sat around and just, saw us kick ass and take names. But Maggie Webster was the one that practiced with us, was the one that grilled us, was the one that, got us the test and the quizzes and kind of gave us a tailor-made education because each one of us, had to be good at each one of our subjects. When I think about my dogs, I'd like to keep my dogs forever if I could, but if, something was to happen, I would want my dogs to move up and beyond. I don't want them to go into a worse situation. Some pieces of shit want their children, they just, beat them up and want them to fall down all the time. It would be sad if my dog ran off or something, but a nice, worthy, middle-class family, if it went off to a better place where they had more protection, more freedom, more food, who am I to say, I'd be sad and jealous, but if it's better for them, that's the only way that I could ever think of giving up my dogs for any reason is if they're moving on to something bigger and better. And I'd want to, stop over to make sure that they're being taken care of because they're my dogs. So in a way, they're my babies forever. And I think every child should have a dog, especially boys. Trevor, Noah, and I agree on this. I could, only give up my puppy if I knew they were going to a better place with more respect, love, freedom than they were getting from me. And so when I think about, parents, why don't they think the same way? If you just want to abuse your children, if you're just an oppressor, molester, and you just got to be a helicopter parent and you got to keep your thumb on top of them, you just want to possess people and things and kittens. But if you actually love a flower, you don't pluck a flower. That kills the flower. That's not love. Killing a flower isn't loving the flower. That flower wanted to live and you killed it. If you love the flower, you water the flower and you appreciate the flower. That's it. That's the best way to love. You don't murder the flower. Yeah, the roses are like, well, thanks a lot for killing us and plucking us. They're dying. That's like got to be one of the worst gifts in the world to give a bunch of dying flowers. Why don't you plant a rose bush? I respect that. I'd rather have rose bushes than a bouquet of roses that's going to, just rot on the kitchen table. You killed a bunch of innocent, beautiful creatures just so I could look at them on a table. You should have planted them in my yard, and then they'd been perennial. And that the one annual, perennial, the one that keeps coming back. So Maggie Webster, at the end of the 8th grade year, at the end of 1995, asked the academic team to write a letter for her. And she said she asked all of us. And I remember going up to my oppressors, my guardians, and they said no, don't do that. Don't stand up for what's good and right and proper. And that's why I feel bad. I'm sorry, Maggie Webster. I didn't write that letter. I didn't stand up for a good teacher, a good person, somebody that treated me right, somebody that was actually articulating my brain, somebody that was actually educating me. If she's still around, Maggie Webster, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to see how you're doing. If I can, I would love to give way more of a shit today, than what I did back then. If you want me to leave you alone, that'd be all right too. But I cared then. It's just that, I'm being pushed on through the grades, do this, do that. I really wasn't thinking of right and wrong and good and correct and proper. You come correct or you don't come at all, right? But they were telling me to shut up and obey, boy. And I don't know, when I think of 41 years, I can't think of too many good, kind people that I've met along the way, along the journey. And Maggie Webster was one of those few good people. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I'm kind of the opposite of who I am growing up, or at least I've got a good philosophy. And my philosophy is you don't put up with any kind of injustice. You don't put up with any kind of... You got to stand up for the good ones. You have to. If you ignore... if somebody, Jeffrey Dahmer raped a guy in the army, the guy complains, and the staff sergeant or whatever fucking ignored it. Well, then you stood up for evil. You didn't stand up for good. You're a bad fucking person. There was a crime that happened and you didn't... The person that got raped is going to kill himself, and then Jeffrey Dahmer is going to go kill some more people. So to think that turning your head when there's injustice... I think the stakes are just as equally high. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I didn't stand up for Maggie Webster. I didn't stand up for probably a lot of people that was educating me, or the few people that I came across. I didn't. But you got to stand up for the good ones. You got to stand up for the good ones. Mr. Heim is going to leave. Maggie Webster is going to, get into a motorcycle crash in Iowa or Kansas somewhere. And that was it. That I didn't write a letter for her. Ben Palmer. Ben Palmer was my Henry Harris. Ben Palmer wrote the letter. She actually educated us. We won a bunch of tournaments. We were a formidable force. Robert Fulton invented the steamboat. Robert Fulton invented the steamboat in 1807. I was mostly the math questions. Greek and Roman mythology went to Brandon Hawkins. So I don't know if white America is irredeemably racist or not. We had a civil war. Half of the country is good, right? So that's something. And that Abraham Lincoln, that great Kentuckian, what an artiste. What a political artiste. His father had treated his son like a slave. So Abraham Lincoln hated slavery because he hated being treated like a slave. Not just for the father, but to the neighbor. The father was like, here, take the boy and make the boy do a bunch of free shit because the father had owed him. To pay for his father's debts, Abraham Lincoln had to do a bunch of free labor. So if you ever had to be a slave growing up for the old man doing a bunch of damn labor for no fucking reason, then you should understand Abraham Lincoln and his detestation of fucking slavery. And Lincoln's father lost the farm at least 3 or 4 fucking times in Kentucky and Indiana, so you had to obey this fucking... Who knows? Maybe it was the culture. Maybe it was the legal this or legal that. But he was just a poor, Ottoman farmer, right? What am I trying to say? I didn't actually hear a lot of good talking about Abraham Lincoln in Kentucky. I heard, there was racists that were in Kentucky. So when I think about racism, I may overdo it on the racism thing. It's just that I hate racism and it's just fucking bullshit. So you come correct or you don't come at all. And so people are being racist sons of bitches. Well, you're fucked up in a lot of ways. You picked evil. And you picked the wrong. I mean, you're saying that what, black people aren't people? They are people. They're just like you and I. What are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about. So because of the racism that I know did exist in Kentucky. I'm not for sure. I haven't talked to a lot of Kentuckians for a while. But I know that hardcore racism did exist, and that's why I know that you have to be anti-racist. You can't just be against racism. You have to be actively you have to do more. You have to go above and beyond. So yeah, Maggie Webster didn't get the credit that she deserved. Mr. Mann was the fucking teacher with 2 M's, M-A-N-N. He was the official head. He never practiced with us. I think he might have gone to the fucking matches and took the credit, but what a piece of shit. He didn't do any fucking thing but took the credit. Maggie Webster asked us all to write a letter on her behalf so she would get the credit, for being good. Maybe become a teacher or something. I don't know. And then the person says, my guardian says, don't burn a bridge. Don't burn what? I've never needed Mr. Mann in my life. He was a fucking 7th grade fucking teacher. He wasn't even mine. What do you mean don't burn a fucking bridge? What are you talking about? Because we didn't stand up for the good fucking teacher, we got stuck with all these shit teachers. How many shit teachers did we have? And we had one fucking good one, 2 or 3? Maggie Webster actually articulated my thoughts, she taught me things. My dream directly. She did it in a fun way too. She was great. She would have been a great teacher. She should have been getting paid at least 30 grand. Mr. Mann got fucking 30 grand and didn't do shit. John Preston and Josh Dickerson, Joey Dickerson. There's a lot of cool people that was. But since I was being oppressed in, the school, the business, the house, I didn't feel like I was going through the motions, so I didn't feel like I could be all that I could be. And me doing well in school was my ticket out. That was my Charlie and the Chocolate victory, my golden ticket out of the shithole. Mr. Heim was a great teacher. But that's the thing, right? The good teachers who actually give a shit, who actually educate, who are smart, and that give a damn about the futures and the lives of their students, those are the ones that get fucking kicked out. But the teachers that are just oppressor, molester, authoritarian, sons of bitches. One teacher said he told parents that their children were smart and brilliant. That way, the parents would respect their children, to respect them and their intelligence, and to harness that intelligence and to aim it so that way they can make something of themselves. Don't you realize what great gift you got here? Look at this beautiful mind. He's a genius in math. He don't even know what liberty is or what engineering means. How come he doesn't know what engineering means? Is anybody even talking to him? You're not even talking to him. You talk to the animals in the trees just so you don't hurt them. That's what the Native Americans said. How come the great teachers are the ones who quit or leave? Or they're the ones that wreck their motorcycles out in Oregon mountain somewhere. But we get all a bunch of fucking shit teachers. 95% of the damn teachers fucking suck for 17 years. From kindergarten to college. Mrs. Glass taught me how to type. That was good. Mrs. Klinkenbeard taught me the bones of the body. They also taught me how, my guardians weren't educating shit. They'd never studied anything. They never read anything. They're not learning anything. Didn't do math. Didn't teach. Didn't educate. They were loud and obnoxious. Violently demanded compliance, obedience. Shut your inner self down. Shut the fuck up. Smash your soul. Crush you. Crush your insides. To turn you into something that you're not. A bitch-ass slave. A bitch-ass bitch. Fucking tobacco, tomato. Fucking mow the damn lawn with the push mower slave. Go make them straight A's and shut your damn mouth. You can't, don't back talk. Don't you look me in the eye. Don't exist. Don't be yourself. Don't feel safe and secure, and don't be your authentic, genuine self. I guess me and the other students in Miss Klinkenbeard's class should theoretically know the bones of the body, but if you don't even have anything in common, you don't have any subject material that you could talk about. What can you talk about? You don't know the bones and the muscles of the body? So you don't know how to learn things and learn anything. You don't know how to encourage things without a common subject matter. What the hell are you talking about?